Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Truly in the way in which the heavens and the earth are created, and in the succession of night and day, are signs for people of understanding. Those who remember Allah standing or sitting or on their sides and reflect upon the creation of the heavens and the earth. Our Lord, you have not created this in vain. Glory be to you, so protect us from the punishment of the fire." One of the key commandments of Allah's book is this tafakkur. We have been commanded to think, not in some kind of simple logic-chopping, algebraic way, but to think with what we truly are, not with the surface of the brain, which has operations that probably a computer could do better than we could, but with that which is more deep, that which is intrinsic to our humanity. That is to say, the lub. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the core of thinking, feeling, moral heart of man in different ways. Sometimes it is the qalb, and then we have the word ruh, and then nafs in its different dimensions. We have ulul nuha, people of understanding, and we also have ulul albab, people of insight, people of inwardness. And the real meaning of the lub is in fact the core. It's like the pip or the seed of a fruit, and we know what it needs. It needs to become what it is created to be. A seed on its own is not very useful. It needs to sprout and to flourish and to flower, but this can only happen when the water of divine remembrance is poured down upon it. But we all have that seed within ourselves. Sometimes it's sprouting a little bit, sometimes it's parched and dying, sometimes it's something magnificent. Only Allah knows what goes on in people's hearts. But this is, in a sense, why we are created. In order to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the determination for that, and the intention that makes that pure, and the understanding of that, and the acceptance of Allah's command is in our inward consciousness. That which alone makes us special and indeed unique. This tafakkur, this contemplation, this looking around, is not just in order to garner information about the physical world so that we can better manipulate it. That's what they'll teach you perhaps at a modern university. It's something far deeper. It's the heart, the lub, the core, looking around and intuiting wisdom in creation. يَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. They contemplate the way in which the heavens and the earth have been created. And in the heavens and the earth there are signs, آيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. Signs, signposts. Some people can read them, some people don't know what they are, some people worship the signposts, some people chop them down. There's a lot of misunderstanding, but essentially everything in the higher and the lower worlds, everything in space and time is nothing other than a combination of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pointing infallibly back to their source. They're not self-subsistent. They didn't pop into existence just of their own volition. They are absolutely dependent on the source. And the function of the look within us is to intuit that. To look at the beauty and the mystery and the depth of creation and to intuit with the deepest, wisest part of what we are, that these things are indeed not an end in themselves, but a pointing to their beginning and to their end. One of the most beautiful parts of Allah's book is that it constantly reminds us of the beauty of what He has made. When we see beauty, we, as it were, breathe a fragrance. We detect that there is something in that. Something made it beautiful. There is a jamil, a beautiful creator that has artistically fashioned the world so that we might be amazed by it. Not only are these signs pointing us back to the Maker, but they are signs which remind us of the goodness and the beauty and ultimately the mercy of the Maker. Surah Ar-Rahman is called Surah Ar-Rahman for a reason. Most of it is conjurings with Allah's creation, objects, signs, things, phenomena, all signs of Allah's grace and mercy. وَالشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرُ بِحُسْبَانٍ وَالنَّجْمُ وَالشَّجَرُ يَسْجُدَانِ وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ أَلَّا تَطْغَوْا فِي الْمِيزَانِ وَأَقِيمُوا الْوَزْنَ بِالْقِسْطِ وَلَا تُخْسِرُوا الْمِيزَانَ. He says, and the sun and the moon are in due measure. and the stars and the trees are in prostration. And the heavens he has made high and has established the balance, that you should not upset the balance, but hold it uprightly and give right measure. وَالْأَرْضَ وَضَعَهَا لِلْأَنَامِ فِيهَا فَاكِهَةٌ وَالنَّخْلُ ذَاتُ الْأَكْمَامِ وَالْحَبُّ ذُو الْعَصْفِ وَالرَّيْحَانِ فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. And the earth he has set out for his creatures, for humanity. In it there are fruits and date palms with spreading branches, and grains of all kinds, and herbs. So which is it of the favours of your Lord that you will deny? The world is ala, gifts, ni'am, blessings. Not only are these signs there to remind us that everything has a source and a point of return, but they are there to remind us of the rahmah of that source and that point of return, and to remind us that everything in our lives is nothing other than gift. The divine-human relation is absolutely unequal. He is al-ghani, the rich, the independent, and we are the fuqara, we are the absolutely needy. We cannot survive for a moment without his sustaining of our lives and of existence. The universe can't continue for a second without his qayyumiyyah, his self-subsistent upholding of everything that is. He alone is al-hayy, al-qayyum. That is his cosmic reality. He is the living, and he is the one who is self-subsisting. Nothing else has this qayyumiyyah, this ability to survive for a moment without him. It's not like the fish taken out of water that might have a minute to live. Without him, there is nothing at all. Just as without light, the shadows can't exist. That's the nature of our dependence. Everything submits to him. كُلُّ لَهُ قَانِتُونَ. And the form of Islam is to enact that in our own lives. Everything is praising him. Everything is surrendering to him. Everything in its lisan al-hal, in its state of mute eloquence, is proclaiming its absolute dependence on the one who is merciful and beautiful and is the source of their beings. Human beings are required to do the same. We are required to look around ourselves, and this is the next lesson that we learn. The source of all of this is beautiful and is benign and is absolute, but the source of all of this also wants us to be part of this cosmic symphony. We are to be part of it. تُسَبِّحُ لَهُ السَّمَاوَاتُ السَّبْعُ وَالْأَرْضُ وَمَنْ فِيهِنْ وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُمْ إِنَّهُ كَانَ حَلِيمًا غَفُورًا. The heavens and the earth and everything that is between them glorify his praise. There is nothing that is not praising him, but you don't understand the way in which they're giving praise. Truly he is the mild and the forgiving. Everything out there is in a state of tasbih. Its submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is its tasbih. Everything is in this state of sujood, of absolute helpless prostration before the source of its existence, its beginning point, its end point, the one who is qahir fawqa ibadih, all-powerful over his slaves, the majestic, the compeller, al-jabbar, al-muntaqim. Everything submits absolutely to that. But we have this capacity to forget. That's our predicament. It should be evident. Everything in creation is qanitun, submitted to him, but we somehow can forget this evident fact. Everything in creation is telling us what we should be doing, but still we have this thing within us that would rather be doing something else. That would rather, as it were, be playing with the signposts, move them around, misinterpret them, make a bonfire out of them, destroy them, whatever it is that we are doing to the planet at the moment, that's what we're doing. And this is, in the fiqh, even a serious offence. To change a signpost or to change a milestone, ma'alim al-ard is a serious offence in Sharia, but we're doing it to the whole planet. You can walk around a modern city, not just New York and London now, but Dubai and Kuala Lumpur and many of our own cities, and there's not much sign of Allah's unmediated, beautiful creation. Those human beings proclaiming their egos instead. Human beings pretending that they're going to go on forever, and building high towers like the evildoers of old. يَتَطَاوَلُونَ فِي الْبُنْيَانِ. One of the signs of the end times, and the end times are a time of forgetfulness and the absence of the ulama, and confusion and rioting and killing, is that people will be building high buildings. يَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَالَهُ أَخْلَدَ. He thinks that his wealth is going to make him eternal. It's not the case, but this is something that he can distract himself with until what is inevitable comes to him. But the reminders are absent. It's almost as if our modern world is constructed precisely to stop us thinking in that worrying way. Where did we come from? Where are we going? What is death? What is the soul? What is the mystery of consciousness? What is the mystery of being? All of that is shut out by the endless quest for the next job, for the next qualification, for the next handbag, for the next program, running, out of breath, because people can make money out of our forgetfulness. If we start to wake up and to think, how do they make money out of it? Taking a walk and looking at Allah's heavens, nobody's going to make a lot of money out of that. So the whole system is repelled by it. The system makes money out of making us dissatisfied. Al-Hakim al-Takathur, rivalry in worldly increase, has distracted you حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرِ, until you visit the grave. But in that Al-Hakim, in that distraction, so many people are engaged in their own takathur and are making money out of us. They're destroying the planet, they're messing it up big time, but still in the interim they're making so many billions that they hope that the scientists will come up with some kind of solution to the problem of global warming. And in any case, the alternative is to just sit and contemplate, or even to pray, and they're afraid of that. George Monbiot has a book called Heat. You've probably seen his column in The Guardian, where he says that unless we reduce carbon emissions by 90%, we'll get quite soon to the tipping point after which there's nothing we can do, and global warming will cause us all to suffocate. 90%, he's calculated it out. He's cut through the rubbish that comes from the lobbyists of the oil companies, and he's calculated it, 90% carbon emissions. All of those long-haul flights, all of those expensive gas-guzzling cars, all of our comforts and our treats and our machines that use up the world's resources, they're using up the world's resources, and the world's resources are finite. Our greed is infinite, the planet is finite. Every generation, there's a quantum leap in our capacity to gobble up the treasures of the earth. But the treasures of the earth are, by and large, not being replicated. There's only a certain amount, even of iron and coal. Fossil fuels on the way out. Who knows? But still, we're so concerned with this takathur over the next generation. We don't think about our grandchildren, whether there'll be any air for them to breathe, or any fish left in the oceans. Instead, we're interested in turning an honest buck in the here and now. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this world not so that we might put our snouts in it like a herd of pigs and just guzzle and guzzle and guzzle. That's not the purpose of creation. It's not why we're here. We have been created to be part of the world in harmony. That's why these verses speak of mizan. أَلَّا تَطْغَوْا فِي الْمِيزَانِ. Do not upset the balance. All of these wonderful things that Allah recites for us, the beauty of the earth and the plants and the stars, don't upset the balance. Be part of it. How can we restore that balance? At the moment, we seem to be like an infection on the planet, like a virus proliferating and destroying the organism that we're feeding off. How long can that last? For how long will Allah's patience endure if we are so massively misunderstanding the purpose of our creation? If we've turned away from sacred principles by which all previous generations and civilizations and kingdoms lived, how long can that go on until finally His patience wears out and some cataclysm ensues? Look at some of those stories in the Quran which are also about what happens when you mess up with nature. Look at the story of Ad and the story of Thamud. The scholars say that Thamud are the descendants of Ad, and they knew that the Ad had been forgetful of Allah's mercy and the beauty of the agriculture which He'd given them, and Allah destroyed them for their forgetfulness. And then the Thamud come along. And many would say that this is the city of Madain Salih, which is about 2 hours' drive from Medina. The Holy Prophet ﷺ was once travelling on one of his ghazawat, and they passed by the remains, the ruins, the shattered cave dwellings of the people of Thamud, and the Sahaba were collecting water from the wells of Thamud, and they were baking bread from corn that they had found growing wild there. When the Holy Prophet ﷺ saw him doing that, he ordered that the water be poured out, and that the bread that they had baked just being given to their animals, their camels. The reason for that is that Allah's punishment had descended upon that people. And if you go there now, it's hard to imagine that it was once a great agricultural settlement like Medina, for instance, or Tabuk, or many of the other oases of northern Arabia. It's just the desert winds and a few Bedouin and not very much. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given them warning. Not just the warning that is implicit in the lisan al-hal of his creation, the beauty that demands reverence, but he sent them a messenger, Sayyidina Salih alayhi salam, one of the great anbiya, who was sent precisely to wake them up. أَتُتْرَكُونَ فِيمَا هَاهُنَا آمِنِينَ. Are you just going to be left in safety and security here? Is this basically all that you have? And they rejected his message. They paid no attention. They were completely uninterested. Even despite his invocation of the beauty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had bestowed upon them. بِزُرُوعٍ وَنَخْلٍ طَلْعُهَا هَضِيمٌ. Fields, beautiful fields of crops and groves of date palms with heavy branches. وَتَنْحِتُونَ مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا آمِنِينَ. And look, he said, you carve houses out of the living rock of the mountains. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُونَ. Fear Allah and obey me. They wanted a sign, kind of a scientific mentality. They were manipulators of matter, and they didn't really want to think about the deep questions about what matter is, why it's beautiful, where it comes from, what time is, what space is. They just wanted to enrich themselves. And this was one of the situations where the poor were following Sayyidina Salih alayhi salam, and the rich really were just having a good time, and as it were, looking out of their penthouse apartments, the poor, and having a good laugh at the religious masses. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them another chance. The second chance was that he sent them the she-camel. They were so proud of their camels that he sent them this amazingly beautiful camel, which clearly was created in a miraculous way and which settled the hearts of many. This was Allah's camel, naqatullah. وَقَالَ هَذِهِ نَاقَةٌ لَهَا شِرْبٌ وَلَكُمْ شِرْبُ يَوْمٍ مَعْلُومٍ. He said to them, this is the camel, and it will drink on a particular day from this particular stream, and you can take water from that particular stream on another day. Pretty simple, not asking for very much. وَلَا تَمَسُّوهَا بِسُوءٍ فَيَأْخُذَكُمْ عَذَابُ يَوْمٍ عَظِيمٍ. And do not harm the camel, do not touch it with anything evil, or you will be overcome with the punishment of a dreadful day. فَعَقَرُوهَا فَأَصْبَحُوا نَادِمِينَ. But they slaughtered it, they hamstrung it. One of the cruelest things that you can do to an animal is just to cut its the ligaments at the back of its knee so it can no longer go around to graze and to eat and eventually dies of starvation. This was a particular way of humiliating a rival tribe in ancient Arabia, to hamstring its camels. What could you do with that after that? You could just watch them die. And فَأَخَذَهُمُ الْعَذَابِ. And then the punishment overcame them. And the punishment for the people of Thamud was a great shout, rajfa, an overwhelming wall of sound that knocked them over. And this is just one of the punishment stories in the Quran, but you could speak of others, and clearly what's happening here with the she-camel of Sayyidina Salih alayhi salam is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is increasing his gifts, the natural beauty, the beauty of this white she-camel that was offered to them, but still they messed up. They destroyed it. They violated nature. They were not interested in, we might now say, a sustainable approach to agriculture and cultivation. Instead, imbalance, breaking the balance. So the lesson is quite clear. The Ummah of Islam is not off the hook because we're just as interested in consuming and polluting and being thoughtless as many other Ummahs as far as one can tell. Even though most of us are poor, the average Bangladeshi consumes only 1/70th of the world's resources compared to what the average American is consuming. But still, many of us want to catch up. But what's required, George Monbiot says, is asceticism, renunciation, self-denial. If we're going to survive, and he's not even interested in religion particularly, if we're going to survive, we need to have this self-control, this discipline. Don't kill the she-camel. Be grateful for Allah's blessings, but don't try to manipulate His creation because it is of finite stability and duration, and you don't know how much the biosphere can take before really appalling things start to happen. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to restore this mizan to the world and to restore the mizan to the hearts of the ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who was the man of fitrah, the man of nature. بُعِثْتُ بِالْحَنِيفِيَّةِ السَّمْحَةِ. One of its meanings is I'm sent with a tolerant, balanced, primal religion, like a religion of nature, and also to establish the balance in our hearts, inshaAllah. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.